With UFC 263 now firmly in the rearview mirror, I wanted to take a video to discuss the ramifications of the title defending performance turned in by the middleweight king Israel Adesanya in the night's main event, and perhaps more importantly, what it means for his future atop the 185-pound division. The fight itself to me was quite enjoyable, although it rarely amounted to anything more than a one-sided clinic from Adesanya. I mean look, Vettori did okay. His striking defense was surprisingly effective from time to time, particularly when Israel was attempting to fire off fight-ending head kicks, but to say that he was one-dimensional in there would be putting it lightly. After he caught that kick in the opening round for a nicely secured takedown, I did genuinely believe that we were about to see something vaguely competitive from then onwards. But in reality, Marvin seemed to run out of answers for Adesanya's skill set pretty quickly, leaving him to play catch-up with the last stylebender from then onwards. He was decent, albeit limited in his efforts. And while I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt had he been concussed or seriously hurt, when he was voicing his belief that he was winning and eventually had just won the fight, both during the bout and afterwards, that honestly left me quite confused. Again, if his bell had been rung and he was left in something of an uncertain state, I'd obviously give him a pass, but watching Vettori debating his cornerman about the round-by-round scoring, before then wheeling away post-fight thinking he had won, yeah, that was incredibly weird. I don't want to jump to conclusions about Marvin Vettori and his attitude, but even his post-fight call-out of Paulo Costa, when he stated his desire to, and I quote, "destroy this drunk guy who can't stop drinking." I don't know what his intended reaction was with that, but to me, it was uninventive, it was vulgar, and it kinda left him looking like the fool between the two. But competitively, Marvin did okay in there. He didn't take too much damage, although some holes in his game, or maybe limitations of his game, were clearly exposed. But for Israel, who moves on to 3 defenses of his middleweight crown, it was strictly business on the night, in terms of the efficiency of his performance. He didn't step on the gas tremendously at any point in the fight, and seemed content to manage his risk levels from start to finish. He did show some excellent work from the bottom at times to escape, and all things considered, didn't look half as helpless on the ground as he did against the comparatively more physical Jan Blachowicz, which, when you consider Vettori's large frame as a middleweight and his overall wrestling chops within the context of the division, was a pretty strong statement to make after the difficulties he encountered up at 205. Because Adesanya is not a big dude, not by any means. Even with the freedom to do otherwise, he still weighed in under the limit for each of his last 2 outings, clearly unperturbed by whatever size discrepancies there may be, whether large and all-encompassing in the case of Blachowicz, or more related to frame and bulk with Vettori. And fans of Adesanya will be happy to report that he didn't seem overpowered on the mat at any point in time on Saturday night. So yeah, it was a textbook performance by the last stylebender, one that, above all other things, served to get his name back into the win column, re-establishing his reputation as one of the sport's pound-for-pound best, and the greatest middleweight fighter on the planet. Or at least, it makes his next step in setting that in stone crystal clear. Because right now, even with this victory over Marvin Vettori in mind, there is one looming presence over Adesanya's status as champion that cannot be ignored any further. If you're enjoying this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all of our latest uploads, before leaving a comment to let YouTube's algorithms know that we are fast becoming one of the best MMA channels on the platform. I personally believe that Adesanya defeated a compromised version of Robert Whittaker when they originally fought at UFC 243. Now don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I'm picking Adesanya to lose in the rematch, quite the opposite actually. But after going 10 consecutive rounds with Yoel Romero, Whittaker was sidelined for 16 months due to complications involving an abdominal hernia and a collapsed bowel. Just to refresh your memory, that ailment, according to reports around the time, could have actually led to his death had he competed against Kelvin Gastelum just hours after he decided to pull out. As the still reigning middleweight champion, he underwent surgery to fix the problem before then waiting over a year to make his walk to the octagon to defend that title against Adesanya. And when the fight came around, I found his approach to be incredibly one-dimensional, and overall, it was a pretty flat showing. Now look, we all know that Adesanya's talent for freezing up his adversaries comes as a direct result of his next level ability to feint and generally outmaneuver his opponents. But I honestly didn't think Whittaker looked himself in there, and through his linear attacks and repeated wild attempts to detach Israel's head from his body, he was eventually countered and finished in the second round. Now let me be clear, even if that was Whittaker in his best possible form at the time, illness, ring rust, and post-Yoel Romero battle scars in mind, I think that this ongoing 3-fight win streak that he's on is proving to us that he is a different animal right now. and in the wake of his incredible victory over Kelvin Gastelum earlier this year, it has become very clear that he's the best middleweight on the planet not named Israel Adesanya. He showed the ability to mix up his offense, keeping Gastelum guessing with a number of expertly timed takedowns in open space, an area in Adesanya's takedown defense he'll likely look to press on. I just think that Adesanya vs Whittaker 2, a fight that originally was the most attended matchup in UFC history, has the potential to be even bigger this time around. Both men hold a huge degree of respect and admiration from the MMA fanbase, and if Stylebender can convince Dana and the UFC to set this one up in Auckland, New Zealand, it'll be a matchup that will without question bring a different level of stakes to the table entirely. I think the Reaper stands as Adesanya's biggest test, the definitive test of this portion of his career. It's not a matchup that will carry with it the asterisks of weight discrepancies. It's a showdown between the two greatest 185-pound fighters on the planet, two fighters who have managed to carve out equally impressive runs of form within the same division to lead them to the spot they are in now. Thankfully, it looks as though this latest victory for Adesanya has left little doubt as to who his next opponent will be, and for my money, it may well be the best matchup of 2021. But what did you make of Adesanya's latest victory? And do you think that Robert Whittaker has made enough improvements to trouble him in the rematch? Do let us know in the comment section below. We always love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thanks for watching.